sunset, sunrise, sunset, sunrise. Time ticks onward without even a sense of our knowing, and we remain reclusive to its spell. This is our circadian rhythm. We awake, we sleep, we dream, we ponder. You see, we are not that different, you and I. We breathe the same air. We pump the same blood. We are mortal, human, fragile, susceptible. Life can so easily slip into the disregarded emptiness by which time conceals. Ritual transforms our routines, and our routines into habits, and suddenly life spins around us without even a glimpse of our attention. Night veiled our horizon, and we had not the consciousness to even notice. When will we awake? We search for a sense of identity. What makes us unique if we are all trying to be observed as something different? Our actions chase for something to hold us, love us, give us worth. Isn't that what we want? To be noticed. What if there could be something more than this monotonous ticking that rules our attention? What if there could be a truth that connected us all in a garment of grace? What if there was a love that saw masterpiece in us all? Could this be the answer we are looking for? There is a blank canvas that I know of, bleakly white, and with alluring purity it remains unblemished. The fabric awaits a touch of a cold brush, a flare of color. Woven into its emptiness is an expectation of purpose. Each fiber awaits the glorious story of redemption in a sightless display of grace. It is this eagerness the artist anticipates. The canvas and the artist to become one in a divine narrative of saving mercy in love. For to be stroked upon this canvas is redemption. It is the story of unmerited favor and undeserved affection. It tells of a broken body, ripped, torn, and bruised for our saving grace. It tells of a man stretched, pierced, and nailed to a tree. In the artist's design is revealed that this reflection of sacrifice would be soaked and interwoven into every corner of the empty fabric. This is his masterwork, a narrative of grace and love.
Well, I would describe Anna as larger than life. That's the term that always comes to my mind when I think of Anna. Larger than life. Oh, you're going to be embarrassed, aren't you? She really doesn't want to put it on, I can tell. She's just not happy about it. She's like, yeah, you just took something off. It's like when you put clothes on them, they just like, really, are you doing this?
Ghana is a country located in Africa. It's on the west coast. It's right on the Gulf of Guinea. I think what draws me to Ghana is the people. And just, you see so much like from pictures and books, and before I ever went to Africa I didn't know much about it, and you know, sometimes people think, oh, it's probably like the Lion King, but it's not in every area. Growing up in a privileged country where we have homes and cars and an endless supply of food and water and whatever we need, it's a lot different in Africa. There's not electricity everywhere you go. There's homes built out of dirt, and people don't wear shoes, and some people don't wear clothes, and they don't have what we have, and so you see a lot of things that are very shocking.
I've been raised in the church, surrounded by amazing people for most all of my life. Both of my parents were musicians, and were actually traveled around California to different churches here and there to bring their worship and bring a message to each one of those. And I kind of was tagged along as the young child, and there's a lot to take in because there was so much going on, but I was raised in that.
its design is carefully planned. Each minute feature sewn into the painting's grand completion with the dip of a brush and the gentle touch of the bristles. The colors begin to show. Vivid life begins to breathe upon the fabric, with each fiber a story to reflect. Alone, the brush's strokes may seem futile, but the artist knows his work, and his hands do not toil with unrehearsed precision. He treasures the work of his hands, the canvas, his prized possession.
This is her room, still. And this is one of her babies, of course, her puppies. She always thought that A was stupid, and I always hung it in the room anyway, and then I always thought that we would give that to A. A was her nurse practitioner. This is her sister that she loved. This is all the Hope Kids memories. This is the benefit that the church did.
The school is a lot different than you would maybe think. There's no walls, there's no windows, there's not like a built-in building. It's open. All the classrooms are open, and it's kind of chaotic. When we first pull up, all the kids saw our van and they just swarmed us. They were so excited. They were yelling Yovu, which means white man in their language, and they were really excited. They don't see white people often, so it's always kind of a treat for them. So it's very different because it's, not as structured as our school is, but a lot of the teachers there don't get paid, and they are there to volunteer, and they do it because they love it and they love the students. So it's quite different, but it's really eye-opening to see people who are giving their lives to help kids, when I'm sure there's something else they could do that they could get paid for.
We find ourselves submerged in a search for purpose, a quest to give a sense of worth to our actions. We seek intention, motivation, and success to fuel the burning passion of our self-guided ambitions. The purpose that we seek, nonetheless, this hope and this future we so desire, is embedded in the very details of our artist's intent.
So my dad would play worship at the church all the time, and one particular Sunday morning when I would be there every single Sunday, but one of the Sunday mornings he went up to go sing a song, and he passed away from a heart attack instantly, right as he was playing music. And I've gone over the whole experience with other people, and what's interesting is that was the one Sunday that I wasn't there, and I was there pretty much every single Sunday, prior to that and after that. But the one time I wasn't there, I was somehow sick, and my mom stayed home and helped me in that one Sunday. And that was, in a way, that felt like such a burden lifted from me, not having to really see that or be there for an experience like that. But I still had this something in me that I wanted. I still have always wanted to find out more and more about that particular morning, because it's changed the lives of my mom and I. But it was just this it was such a huge thing that happened in the community, because so many people were affected by my father, and I'd always grown up hearing about how he had connected and touched other people's lives, and that's just what I knew about my dad. People that remembered him for years and years after, and people that are still remembering now. But I've always kind of grown up in that shadow and understanding what kind of person he was.
Often distracted by the mangled mess of soaking color and the hours of unfinished features, the canvas becomes disillusioned to see its elegance. We begin to focus on the blemishes as though they seem, for upon the frayed edges and unfinished details, we are vulnerable. Have we come but a soaking, spilling mess? Why the pain? Why such suffering? The details begin to crowd our minds, and we lose trust in the painter's divine hands. Wandering in the endless chasms of our mind, we become lost.
Well, when she was 10, she had a lump that came up on her shoulder, and we immediately took her to the doctor, and they did an MRI, and they did this MRI on a Friday, and they admitted her on Monday, and they diagnosed her and began chemo the following Friday, and we did that for a year, and then I think we did it for about 6 months, and then we went to Houston, and they did radiation. We stayed there for 2 months, and they did radiation on her shoulder, and when that was over with, we got to come home, and then 6 months later, she was finished with her treatment, and 6 months later after that, it reoccurred in her shoulder. And then they started chemo again, and I think it was like a couple months after the chemo kind of took the tumor down. They did surgery, and they removed her shoulder blade, and that's where the lump was. It was about 9 months later it reoccurred in her spine, and they began a different course of treatment. And that was the roughest course of treatment that she was on for about 9 more months. And then she was finished with that. And then about 2 months later, it came back in her hip. And at that time, the doctors told her that there was nothing else that they could do. And so we just lived life. When she was ready to stop treatment, it was her choice more than anyone's to stop. And We were going to start trying to do some juicing and some things that, different treatments, but she didn't want to do it. She wanted to live and eat and drink what she wanted and live life. And so that's what we did. We never really talked a whole lot about dying because we never expected her to die, because we thought that God was going to heal her here on this earth. So we didn't spend a lot of time talking about dying.
The other story that really stuck out to me is when we were at the hospital. We went around and we prayed for everybody, and we had done this the previous year too, so I kind of knew what to expect, and didn't really, wasn't worried about anything or anything like that. But we had gone to the kids department, and there wasn't very many kids in there, but there was only a few, and so we were coloring and playing with them, and I kept hearing a baby crying in the corner, and I didn't know, why she was crying, so I walked over there, and there was a lady standing by her who at the time I thought was her mom, and I kind of tried to ask her, why is she here? Is she sick? And she didn't speak English, so the nurse had come over, and she was telling me that the baby was there because she was malnourished and she had malaria. And she had to be 6-7 months old, and the lady explained that her mother had died at childbirth, and she was grandma. She was now taking care of the baby, but they couldn't feed her. They couldn't afford to feed her, and so she was very malnourished and with malaria as well. And so I asked if we could pray for her, and I don't know what it was, but I just could not contain myself. I put my hand on her side, and you could just feel her ribs, and everywhere I moved my hand you could just feel her bones and how thin she was. And just the rest of the day I was a mess, and I couldn't stop thinking about that baby, and I couldn't stop thinking about how it's not fair that she is not able to be fed, and she has a disease that could possibly kill her. And I just was so overwhelmed with the fact that it's not fair that they have to live like this, and that I get to go home healthy and will probably never get malaria. But it just really broke my heart that a baby so young, so little, and has no control over what happens to her. And yeah.
I was in the room with her alone, and I was sitting over on this, it was like a day bed within the window, and she was laying there, and I was just on my computer, and I looked up at her, and I felt prompted to go and sit with her. And I went over, and she was breathing normally. Her skin color was perfect. She just looked like a little angel laying there. She didn't have a death look on her. And being a hospice nurse, I know what that look is. She didn't have that look. And she was just breathing normally, and I went over, and she always loved for me to rub her hair. She always wanted me to do this to her, and I started doing that to her, and I had my other hand in her hand, and I said, Anna, I love you so much. I love you so, so much. And I said, but if you're ready, when you're ready
you can reach out and take Jesus' hand. And I said, you can trust him, honey. He'll never forsake you. And she took a breath. And I kept waiting for her to take another breath. And I saw in her neck her heart beat. And it quivered. And it stopped. And she didn't ever take another breath. And I remember looking up over her body and saying, God, I shouted, God, you do your part. You be there for her. As if he wouldn't be, But, when the rubber meets the road and when your little girl's crossing over, you want to know.
So I've had this common theme in my life of really thinking about the effects of death and the effects of losing a life. And what it really has started to mean to me is being able to, is when I've started to really surround myself with people that I'm being able to really dig into the Word and really understand through this manuscript that was given to us, this Bible that we have, that I see the story of Jesus's death and resurrection, and that it sticks out to me because this is, for me, it's the cornerstone of my faith, and understanding what that resurrection means to me. What I ended up coming to is that, I've seen death in my life, and I've seen people go that I will never see again. And a lot of times it's such a struggle to find meaning in that, to find some sort of purpose for that to happen. But now what I see is it's a reflection of the loss that's shown throughout God's Word, and it shows how and I look at it almost mirroring even in my own life. Jesus' resurrection is a reminder to me that I've been resurrected myself, and that our lives is this resurrection. Like, us living here is part of that, and us being able to spread news of that resurrection is my whole reasoning of life, of me being here.
Crowded by the cluttered mess, we repeatedly fall into confusion. How could we be created with imperfection, with blemish? Our surging questions fail to observe that the hands of our painter are scarred with such suffering. For within his design, a color of redemption and healing weaves into the details. For he himself became broken as we were broken. Naked and vulnerable, he hung for the world to mock, with flesh ripped and torn from his bones, and with pierced hands stretched across our humanity, we find the completion of our redemption. This canvas is a display of his love that overcomes all pain, all suffering, all anguish. For with him we may suffer, but through him we find everlasting resurrection.
every single day is part of that healing process that I still continue. There's any day that I look outside and I see a dad playing baseball with his kid or something. Those are days that, and even now, 10 years later, that I feel a profound sense of that loss that I felt back then. And I have every single moment are days where I feel that, and then I understand the sense of resurrection that I have in my life, and being able to look at all of these experiences I've had since then and see how my life has been so enriched by the results of what happened, that Sunday morning. And going back and seeing the people's lives that have changed, the people that I've remembered, that's a part of the healing process, with even in itself, and it's really amazing.
I went to a Goodwill store, and I found this picture of a white-robed man, and there was a girl laying across his lap, and he was just kind of holding her like this. And the girl was a little bit older than Anna, and it reminded me of maybe what she would have looked like when she was older, or maybe what I would have looked like younger. And there are times that I will lay in bed at night and just pray for him to hold me on this side and hold her with his other arm on that side. And that helps me. That gives me peace. But the pain of her absence will never go away. Never. But I have chosen to trust him.
As the artist drives closer to the completion of his masterpiece, the details begin to blend. Our memories stand like still photographs cascaded across our human experience. Our pains, unanswered questions, failures and fears, our greatest moments and our most devastating defeats. Each plays a role, a detail in the narrative of our humanity.
I think that there's probably the bigger picture. I have to trust that there's a bigger picture, and I have to trust that the answers to the whys are something out of my reach. I don't know the answers. I'll never know the answers. But I believe that God knows why. And someday we'll all know why.
Well, I would say that the easy answer is that God commanded us. He says in Matthew 16:15 to go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to all of creation. So it's something that we're called to do, and it's Jesus speaking to us, so it's a command. But I'd also say that it's because someone made a difference in my life, and my chance to give back and to share that same hope that somebody else gave me. I'm where I am today because of another person, because they took the opportunity to share Christ with whoever it was in my family. You know, I'm here because somebody else made a difference in my life.
Suddenly, from the canvas, life begins to emerge. The glorious details begin to work in unison, like a vibrant symphony of color. With bold letters, our paint begins to declare, Jesus is my salvation. We are the fulfillment of his promise, the grand finale in his divine masterwork. Our truth is resurrection, and he is the fulcrum. He is the emerging string that everything connects, and like a tapestry interweaved with his grace, we begin to display the work of our artist. In him, all things work together, and through him, all of us hold together. But the task remains unfinished, for until the last stroke is made, until the brush touches the canvas no more, and the artist can step away with content in his heart, we must display his love. With every step, share our servanthood with his lost children, to pick up our cross, deny ourselves, and follow him.
I worship out of this compulsion to connect with my Creator, and I need to not only, part of it is a thankfulness, and it's a joy, but I worship more out of joy. And those times, what I've found is that I'm able to, now I've been able to worship out of grief. And when you worship in grief and sorrow and pain, it's a very, very special thing.
When I think about what love is, all I can really think is that God is love. Try really hard not to cry. God is the perfect example of someone who shows unconditional love and someone who gives unconditional love to people who are so undeserving of that love. I'm someone who's so undeserving of that love, but no matter what, God never stops loving me.
And all thought has led to this revelation that he is the vine and we are the branches, that Jesus is the salvation and we are his prize. With every color, every stride, feature and detail not taken in vain, but a display of his fierce love and affection for his adopted children. where all things work together for His glory. For He is the artist, and we are His masterpiece.
Creatures of my dreams.